Hello and welcome to A Better Way of Life, all about conversations. Today I'm joined by Sarah Chalmers-Page. Thank you for joining me. To begin with, let's tell the audience something about you.
I'm Sarah. I help people tell stories. I don't tend to qualify myself as a storyteller. I help other people find their stories. I've got a background in NHS management and social research. So a big part of that was finding the people whose stories don't get told, who don't get a chance to sit at the table. Often they're the people who we need to know the most about to make things work. You know, going out to the people who are actually impacted by a service, or going out to the people who make a service work, you know, your cleaners, your healthcare assistants, and giving them the space and the listening ear to tell me what was actually going on, what was really happening on the ground. When I came out of that, I got talking to a lot of people, particularly founders or people who were pivoting to career change. And we're taught not to have those conversations. We're taught not to have those stories. We're specifically, Brits are told not to boast. We're raised that way. And actually what an awful lot of people out there need is somebody who can listen properly and who is having a conversation with them and not waiting to fill in the gap, not sitting there with my agenda to jump in the minute you pause for breath. So that's what I do.
I find this fascinating, and we're going to talk a lot today about communication and conversation and stories as well. But as someone that now has a relatively successful podcast, which is all centered around interviewing musicians, one of the things that people who listen into that tell me is that what makes it interesting for them are the stories. Yeah. Because what they don't get a lot of the time, even with musicians, is the stories. What they get is the adverts, which is almost what we get from a lot of business people on social media and places like that. What we get is, this is what I do, this is how I can help you, this is the solution, let's start the journey there. But actually that doesn't build any trust, whereas those stories, and I've got loads of them now which I carry with me from the 660 odd episodes that I've done on the music podcast, the little things like I scratched John Lennon's piano that George Michael brought, those are brilliant. Those are the things that make people go, oh my word, what a story. And they endear people to the people that are telling those stories. They want to know more. They want to come into the part of their world. So why is it then that when we get in front of people, especially in business, people sort of naturally gravitate towards sales mode rather than actually starting by, tell me about you. Tell me a story.
Yeah. I think I get quite hand wavy and borderline political at this point, but we're pushed into thinking we have no time. And we're pushed into thinking, you know, we have this image, this sort of meta-narrative in society of who the successful guy is. And I'm using guy advisedly. You know, we're taught this very kind of, you know, sell, and success is hurry, and extroverted and big character is the salesman. And that's what we ought to be doing, because you're short of time and you have to, if you don't make that impression the first 20 seconds, you've lost it. I'm not sure.
The elevator pitch. The elevator pitch. Oh.
So I started on my first job with an actual paycheck attached was being a barmaid. And I have been in the bar with the range of characters, and there will be someone holding court doing that in the corner. No one really likes them. And it's this horrible secret that you see from that side of the bar, is that the person that everybody brightens up when they walk in, somebody for a start who listens. He's quite often, and again, I'm using he because I was a barmaid in the 90s, so it tended to be. But, you know, it tends to be a bit quieter, tends to be a bit of a listener. And then someone will sort of nudge you across and say, ask him a story about. And it'll turn out that he was like special forces or something. But it's not, it's something you have to give time to, and you have to give listening to. And we're steered away from believing there's time.
We are. And we're also very afraid for some reason or another about actually sitting in somebody else's space first.
Yeah.
Here's a part of my theory on it. I think that we are very egotistical creatures in general. And I think that a lot of us struggle to actually get past what's in it for me.
Yeah.
What's in it for me bit. But actually, if we can get past the what's in it for me and actually approach the world all the time with a, what are they doing? What are they interested in? How can, not even how can I help them, but how can I listen with intent to them first?
Yeah.
How can I give them time? My time. How can I give them that energy of actually just sitting and listening? Then we can get so much further. And I think that comes across for me as well in the other thing that I'm very fascinated with, which is assumptions in communication. Because I feel like we enter every conversation with so many assumptions. We struggle to see that other people have a different perspective on the world than us.
And that those perspectives aren't right or wrong.
Yes.
I mean, there are some things that I do view as right or wrong. There are conversations I will walk away from. But again, most things are grey. Most things are grey area. Most things have more than one way of looking at them.
I particularly struggle with that in terms of things like social media now, or any kind of online engagement, in terms of the fact that we now have a big push towards sort of cancel culture.
Oh, God, the Puritanism.
Yeah, that ultimately, and you even hear it from sort of social media gurus out there, just if they don't agree with you, just block them, cancel them out, move them away. Now, listen, I'm not saying that if somebody has got extremist views and they're being rude to you, horrible to you as a person, that you shouldn't actually just put that person in a cage somewhere online, because ultimately you don't necessarily want that kind of bad viewpoint hanging around you. But we have lost the ability to just sit in a conversation with someone, I'll say it again, especially when they a viewpoint which isn't what our viewpoint is. But we need to sit in conversations with people that have got a different viewpoint from us, don't we?
This is the thing, is that, I mean, in the pub, there are people I wouldn't invite to my table. I don't think I have the right to ban them from the pub unless they really are having really terrible views. And if you leave aside the big isms, because, you know, I won't sit down. If somebody's really being racist or somebody's being really terrible about women or something, I think I don't have to invite them to my table. But I was saying before we went online, I was in university right in the run up to the Good Friday Agreement. And there were people, you know, we were first year university, so we were in our late teens, but there were people sitting down with each other late at night who really had reason to have grudge with the other side. I mean, genuine reason. This wasn't like somebody has been the wrong shade of pink in their socialism. This was actually, you know, the people that you are saying you support bombed my family, you know, and they were sitting down and they were talking. And out of that atmosphere there was at the time, we got the Good Friday Agreement. I say we, obviously I wasn't directly involved in any of this, but as a society, we got the Good Friday Agreement. And the bravery that took, which I didn't realize in my teens, but looking back on it now, the bravery it took to sit in those conversations, the bravery it took to say, I'll sign this agreement that means people will go free. If we had been in a position where those conversations were taking place on modern social media and people weren't hearing each other and the filter bubbles were fueling each other the way they do now, I don't know if we could have got that agreement over the line. And again, I'm saying we like I was involved. Clearly I wasn't, but as a society, as a people. And And the difference that's made. I mean, if you'd have told my parents that you'd be going to Belfast as a foodie tourism and things, that the difference it made when I've talked to people who grew up in that atmosphere, who say for the first time they can call their friend's name across a pub and it's safe. I think we need to, and I think the other thing is that, I mean, having said I'm ex-public sector, you can guess where my sympathies lie in terms of politics. But the right tend to let anyone in the tent. Whereas the left have this horrible habit of saying, well, you're a little bit too pink for me, or you're a little bit too maroon for me, or maybe you're a bit burgundy. And I'm not talking to you, you're the wrong kind of socialist, you're the wrong kind of progressive. At which point we shove the middle ground out the door. Yep. And the middle ground's flapping around looking for someone who'll listen. And it's not us who's listening to them. So again, I've had this great big political screed, which I wasn't going to do today. But if we actually want to make progress, if we actually want to persuade people, and I'm sure people on the other side of the fence could say the same, we want to make friends, we want our way, we're not going to get that by going la 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 la, I'm not talking to you. It's really, it's not how you convince people. And it's a shame, because I know a lot of people who soft agree with a lot of things I agree with, who have completely turned their back on causes they used to support because they've been pushed out for not being the right shade of red, which, doesn't help anyone.
How much do you think the internet is to blame for all of this? So I was born in 1971, I grew up like you with the peace talks. I grew up with listening to leaders being called to come to talk together, whether it was Nelson Mandela or whether even if you think like massive events like Live Aid, where Bob Geldof, Bono went out, met with world leaders, we sat round a table, we discussed things, we tried to move society on, right?
Probably with some people they violently disagreed with on other topics.
Absolutely. And now you never kind of hear of that, right? If you look at some of the stuff that's been orchestrated on TV, especially out of America, I don't want to go too much into the politics of it, but where it doesn't look or feel the same way anymore. That doesn't feel like a conversation. It doesn't feel like a talk. It just feels like a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like somewhere we've lost that urge in society to try and do better. And it's almost like when the internet came along, increasing communication scuppered our proper communication.
I think it did. I think there is. I mean, the internet's done some amazing things. It has. I'm not a Luddite. It's done some incredible things.
Yeah.
One of the incredible things it did is it made it easier to find people who were very like you. And so I think there are people who, you see this with some of the weird beliefs. That people who had beliefs that were fringe and very quiet have found other people who have those beliefs, and they can fuel each other, they support each other, which is the shadow of the fact that the internet can be a really supportive place. And I think there's that, and then they frighten the sort of people in the middle. So you hear a lot from the extremes, you don't hear so much from the middle, and you don't hear people saying, steady on, mate. Back in my barmaid days.
I think that's really interesting. I think that's really interesting. So one of the things one of the things you're talking about there is this great phrase that's been bandied about, which is find your tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's horrible, right? Because for me, my tribe that I want, if you like, are people that don't necessarily agree with me.
Yeah.
Right.
I think people you need sometimes are going to challenge you a bit.
Yeah.
There are things I take as article as faith, but my opinion on AI is a really good example. Actually, my opinion on big political things we can park. Some of that's so I've seen it described that the difference between faith and opinion is that if I've got an opinion, I can tell you what I'd need to change my mind. If it's faith, I just believe it, and there are things I just believe.
Yep.
But my opinion on AI is opinion. I need people to come around and say you're wrong because. And then
I've always looked at it this way, Sarah, right? I've always looked at it that we all have different opinions. We all have different beliefs because we come from different socio-economic backgrounds. We've had different life journeys. We've studied different things. So, we're bound to have different kind of belief systems and different opinions on things. But surely what we should be doing, if we are to progress as human beings, is we need to be speaking our truths to other people and then listening and working out whether or not something of what they say alters our truth at all.
Yeah.
I never think we get to a truth. I just think what we do by giving space to other people's truths and really listening is get closer to a truth.
If there was a single truth, we'd have found it in 4,000 years of philosophizing about it.
Yeah, exactly. We're never going to do it.
There's been some really clever people working on this. I think this is where this is where I'm quite lucky in that my dad changed so much over the course of his life, and I think having that role model of somebody who actually did listen. The dad I had when I was young was a barely reformed, quite violent man who'd had a very, very difficult upbringing and very, very difficult early professional experiences, ragingly homophobic atheist. By the time I lost him, when I was 28, he died. By the time I lost him, he was a Church of England lay preacher who'd come round to the idea that actually there's nothing wrong with anyone's sexuality, and who you couldn't have imagined a gentler man you'd rather put in charge of a bunch of small children. And that was a lot of hard work. And I think that's part of it, is that he listened, he really listened, he thought. And some of that was painful.
Yeah.
And I think also we're taught that we don't have to be uncomfortable. And that's the other thing that's really shifting, whether that's an internet shift or a social shift. You listen to people talk and there's this real idea that we are due constant comfort. And actually, I have been embarrassingly wrong about things over the course of my life. And I could have dug my heels in. I think that's part of it, is that listening can be really uncomfortable.
You're talking about that change within someone. So that's about doing work. I suppose to some extent, this idea of doing work on yourself, but actually I query that as well sometimes. Is it about people doing work on themselves and changing themselves? Because if they, at the end of that, still got a very strong opinion and think that they can put down other people, that feels like they haven't actually done work on themselves. I think the ultimate doing work on yourself is to become more open to trying to understand other people.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is a lot about, I think there's an openness that we lose. And I think there is so a lot of things are driven by fear. I think there's a real kind of, listening can be uncomfortable. Opening yourself to the world can be uncomfortable. Things are going to upset you out there. But also, a lot of the conversations you hear are about risk, are about, I'm stuttering a bit, but I remember there being a real shift between it being perfectly normal to make small talk on public transport. I mean, you can put your headphones in, no one's going to make you, but that being perfectly normal. And grown adults viewing that as dangerous.
Yeah.
Where that was a big part of why I traveled when I was younger, was that, you'd talk to interesting people because we were all out of context. You'd get chatting because none of us are with our usual social circles. That was a big part of the point. Yeah. And you read blogs now where it's like, oh my God, this person talked to me. And it's not that this person was sexually harassing them, which is wrong. It's not that this person was aggressively begging, which is horrible. It's just that this person said, like, funny weather we're having or something. And oh God. Yeah. We're so risk averse.
Part of that is, and I find this quite interesting as well, part of that is very geographic as well, right?
Oh, yes. Oh,
because now, so I come from a part of the world where, just north of London, where that is the case, right? You were brought up down Bedfordshire, right?
I spent my teens in Essex.
Right, okay. So But you were taught, like, you, especially if you're going into London, etc. You don't look up on the tube. You don't talk to other people.
No eye contact.
Right. I've moved down. I now have lived most of my life down in the West Country. Now in the West Country, everybody talks to everybody.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of that is, and you see it, is people go, oh, you know, people are so friendly down in the West Country. It's almost a bit disturbing. Right. And you go, yeah, but because the culture down here has still remained more local, if you like. It's still remained more friendly, if you like.
One of the friendliest places I've lived in was central Manchester, where everyone was from somewhere else. But they still had this real culture of chattiness. Yeah, I had, and I'm dreadful for not recognizing people. I had an entire conversation about how hard it is to wean babies with a woman who turned out to be the actress who played Flick in Corrie. I don't watch Corrie. I had no idea who she was.
I love that when that happens.
With a baby. So, but yeah, I think it's definitely geographical, but again, social media. All the buzz for a while on social media was you mustn't do it. And all the buzz on social media was this is terrifying. And at this point, so I born in Scotland, teens in Essex, little while in Massachusetts of all places, little while in Swindon, not far from you, long while in Manchester, and now I'm back in Scotland. And the places away from the southeast where people chat are, I feel safer there.
Yep.
Because you sort of think that people might notice. It's something. I mean, I'm not sure if there's any statistics to back that up, but I sort of feel like if I had a heart attack on a bus in Manchester or Edinburgh, someone would say something. If I had a heart attack in Glasgow, someone would probably physically carry me to the hospital. I think someone would notice. I
think you're probably right. And actually, if you look at sort of like local Facebook groups and stuff like that, if you look at the local Facebook group for where I live in Chard, right? If you want to know what's going on, literally, if you go to the Facebook group, within a minute or so of something happening in Chard, everybody's talked about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? But then people are then literally offering help and trying to get involved, which is great in a way, because you do feel kind of like safe that, as you say, people will actually be taking notice of this. How does this relate to business?
So I think we separate life and business too much. I think we act like business is this separate thing. So I have this real life where I'm this cuddly, chatty mum of two, where I do mum of two things and I birdwatch. And then I have business life where I put on my suit and I'm now going to be professional. And we act like your brain wiring hasn't changed between those two events.
Yeah.
Who you are doesn't actually change between those two events. I don't walk into business and so that feeling of safety I have when people chat was the same feeling of safety I had in some workplaces where I knew that Sue's granddaughter was doing her GCSEs. I knew this small talk that we run down all the time. I can't bear small talk. Is how we create psychological safety. It's why we've kept it for thousands of years. It's like you read Chaucer and there's like, it was a sunny day. How you doing, mate? You get all that. I think when we lose that, and particularly I love working remotely. I'm in my spare room, but particularly working remotely, you have to kind of work at that level of just knowing who people are, knowing that, people do have preferred communication styles. I know some meetings will go better if we start it with a little bit of chit chat about people's bird watching at the weekend. I know some people are more direct and this meeting will go better if I cut to the chase a bit, but we can be warm. And I think we can forget that we also need to trust our colleagues. We also need to trust people who aren't direct. I don't really use the language of clients often, but we don't build trust by immediately going in and going, hi, I'm Sarah, I'm brilliant, and this is what my product costs, at them. And I think most of the business I've got, it's been much, much more kind of, there's been a warm up. Do
you know what? It's really interesting you say that, because I literally sat on I'm going to say, it was a what was meant to be a warm up, let's get to know you call with someone a few weeks back. Yeah. And over 27 minutes, this person tried to shoot my colleague down They try to push their agenda. They try to sell what they're doing. And then when I gave them pushback, they went, well, actually, I feel like I've given you 27 minutes of my time. I feel like that's enough to build trust.
Ugh, yuck. Oh, I hate this. I hate the whole concept of pain point marketing. Like, even I still freelance on the edge of the NHS quite often. But one of my other hats, I still do some consultancy with the NHS, and I've been in rooms where they've got someone in from outside, and the person from outside starts talking about pain points. It's just like, oh God. For a start, somebody's entering the NHS because they're in pain. That is de facto why they're here. But also, why are we doing this negative, nasty, here's what you're doing wrong approach to everything? Like, it's not progressive. Where we were talking earlier about things being progressive. You just, how we move things forward isn't going, you're terrible and this is how I'm going to fix you. It's, tell me what's going on for you. Tell me, that sounds great. That bit sounds great. We can, again, in the much derided public sector and charitable sector, we talk about strengths-based approaches. Why aren't we taking a strengths-based approach to sales? Why aren't we taking an approach that goes, my gosh, your product sounds fantastic. I love it. How do we move forward from the point you're on? Rather than knocking people down first.
Yeah.
27 boring minutes.
Do you think we've ended up with a lot of contradictory things or spaces in business? Bearing in mind what you said earlier about business and life being the same sort of thing, which I agree with as well. I don't think there's anything such as work-life balance. I think all things come out of trust, right? I think if you've got clients, for example, if you need space to go on holiday, or you need space to, have a day off because your children, have got a sports day or they're ill or whatever else as well. If you've built the trust and the relationship with that person will understand. Right? Yeah, absolutely. If they haven't, or if you haven't built that trust, then there'll probably be suspicion there. Why are you doing that? Why are you you eating into my time or whatever? Why am I paying you to do that? But I think that I see that we now got left with a lot of kind of very contradictory things. Network meetings are one of them, right? Yeah. I've got this aversion to most network meetings. I understand that people think they're incredibly valuable, but I think a lot of the time people are going to these things and they think that they've got value, but actually the wrong people are at them for what they need to do, right? Because I think if you're going to go into a network space and you need to speak to leaders in organizations, etc., and actually what you're in is a space where there's lots of plumbers and carpenters, no disrespect, etc., and business coaches and social media gurus, etc., who are you selling to? You're not. Right? None of the people that you need to speak to are in that space. The other thing with those network meetings is that the narrative of a lot of those network meetings are, let's sit in a conversation, let's get to know each other, let's build relationships. And yet the first thing they do is let's stand up for 35 seconds and do an elevator pitch. Yeah. Right. Right. So what actually the actions and the narrative are actually at odds with each other. Right? Because if they really wanted to get to know people, right, they need to build in time into that. They need to build in activities that will actually build trust with people, not activities that are based around, this week, Jimmy's going to tell us all about his product.
Yeah. I think I've seen this done brilliantly a couple of times, actually. I've seen it done well. I'm going to credit, so Lynn Houndy, who runs Flexible Working Scotland, also runs an event called, I always get the title wrong. Lynn, if you're watching, I'm sorry. But is it Catalyzing Connections? But it's set up with people who are going to stand up and ask for help. This is my project. They're in the social enterprise space. This is my project. This is what's going well. I need to. Who has ideas? And then not only are they getting genuine help for free, well, I think it's about a £10 entrance fee, but you get your tea and coffee with that and some soup. But also the people who are offering the help are, you know who someone is by the help not the help they offer with a quid pro quo, but the advice someone offers for free, the advice someone offers because somebody's just said, help me, tells you quite a lot about who they are. And it's very much not an elevator pitch. It's very much not selling anything. The people up there do have projects, but it's not a project that anyone else is going to pay into or volunteer for. It's help. And I think the other people that do this well, it's a woman-only one, but Kylie Reid at Egg sets up events in very nice restaurants and very nice hotels in Edinburgh mostly, although she's spreading across the nation. Good pastries, lots of space to chat. A small nudge to people like me who've been to a few of them. Oh, that lady over there's on her own. And but you chat, you talk genuinely about the weather or your journey in or how much you like their necklace, because it's very much set up on that basis. And then there will be a speaker, and the speaker's often on a specific topic. We had a really good one from somebody who was ex-LinkedIn, which had a really good one from Donna Ashworth, who bills herself as one of Britain's worst poets, but really resonates with people. And she's not, she's great, but it's very, very much her responding to the media. The media slag her off. But it's not aimed at, I will fix you. And it's not aimed at, this is my product, buy it. It's very much more, this is something some of you have said you would like to know more about. Have a pastry. We'll really talk. And then here is a brilliant speaker to talk to you about it. But it's very open. And I think it's not so salesy. And I think that's really important, because I don't think I've ever walked out of either a Catalyzing Connections event or an Egg event with a definite lead for an absolute sale. I have walked out with people who know me and who like me, and that was that nice woman who liked my necklace. And then you walk out, and then next time you see them, they're in your head. And then the time after that you see them, there might be, I'd love to talk to you about this. Can we have a coffee?
Exactly that.
Much slower. Yeah. But it's much more based on the idea that Sarah is a human, and that Sarah has this, Sarah is interested in storytelling. I was talking to someone the other day who was struggling with that, and it's not based on, it's not Dragon's Den.
No. I am doing 4 events in London over the summer, which you're probably aware of. They're called them the London Leadership Events. And when I'm talking to people about them, some people really struggling with it, really struggling with it. Okay. Because I say, oh, it'd be great to get you along to this event. Oh, so you need me as a speaker? I've already told you, no speakers. And it's like,
let's go to talk.
How does that work then? Well, it works because I'm encouraging everybody to kind of be on a level playing field for once, right? There's no speaker. There's no selling. These are the rules. There's no selling. There's no tote bags being given out with like soft squidgy balls that you apparently remove your stress, and pens that won't work after a week.
Oh dear God, the sheer number of tote bags I own.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It is none of that. You see people walking out of an Excel exhibition and whatever, and they've got like 10 of these bags, and then they just end up going to schools with plimsolls in them. That's the only benefit of them. There's no pamphlets being given out. There are questions. Because for me, I guess that's just me. I've always been like that. I've always just had questions. So whether it was when I started my career and it was in radio, or when I was working as a workplace needs assessor, for me, it was just, I don't want a tick sheet. I don't want to be following a formula necessarily. What I want is to get to know this person, and you get to know somebody by asking them questions. And I know we've got some big questions in society at the moment, especially leaders have some very big questions around things like AI, around things like making decisions, because I think we do have a decision crisis with a lot of our leaders at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think people just need the space to sit in a conversation and to have those conversations.
I think we absolutely need that. And I think it is very much about it. I miss that from university. I miss I miss just the tutorials where someone would throw a big question into the room and leave it there. And at that point, I don't know if that's a cohort effect because we were young and had time, or if it was like a generation, or if we've lost this. I don't know any of that, but it has been so long since someone said, here is a big, important, hard question with no clear answer. Run.
Yeah.
I think there's also a problem with instrumentalism. There's a problem where we are sold everything as a means to an end. So, I mean, it's a flippant example, but I like watching birds. I'm not a bird watcher as such. I'm not good enough. But I like birds. So I will say, people say, what did you do this weekend? And I'll say, I went and sat in Musselburgh Hyde and watched them birds for a while. And they'll go, oh, I hear that's really good for mindfulness. And it's great, like for gentle I like them. And I really think we need to get back as a society. Like, I didn't go for a walk necessarily to meditate or to get exercise or because it's good for my lungs. The tree out there does not have a monetary value in the number of grams of carbon it's taking out the atmosphere. It's a good tree because it's a good tree. I like walking.
Yeah. I have a massive thing about this area as well, which is time.
Yeah.
Right. I think this is one of the danger points of AI.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, it's one of the things that I'm going to bring it into the events that we do. Some people are telling me that AI is really helping them become human again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some people are saying, and I get this, some people are saying that actually, as an organization, what we're doing is we're using AI to do the grunt work, which people shouldn't have been doing. And we've really started to focus on what they should be doing as human beings. That's great if it actually is happening.
Yeah.
Not sure that it really is, but there you go. But I do hear another kind of more sinister underbelly, which is, and we've seen it play out in some of the public news, where people are not being given time to think. They're not being given time to just noodle a thought over.
Yep.
And therefore they're being given a task, and because AI is in the process now, it's expected that they should be able to get back with something fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But the danger is disengagement. The danger is that what happens is someone gets that piece of work, doesn't even really look at it, puts it into AI, says, give me the answer, pushes it back to where it came from. Mm-hmm. And they've not done anything.
No,
all they've done is push buttons. The brain hasn't opened. They haven't looked over what they've produced. They haven't really read it properly, etc. And there was a famous case recently within the police where that happened. And I think part of a children's TV program had crept into some of the dialogue of this report because he was doing it through a microphone, and then it went back up. That's dangerous. That's incredibly dangerous. The disengagement is the dangerous bit. Yeah.
In two really important ways. The first one being, I am good at what I do. I'm good at my consultancy. I'm good at my qualitative analysis because I've done the grunt work. Because I've spent years. So it looks automatic. It feels automatic, but that's because I did the grunt work. The grunt work is how we learn. And the other way it's dangerous is that I have to push back on this when I'm doing the consultancy stuff. I could put the 1,400 data points you've just handed me in a survey into AI and ask it to run the figures. It will miss things. It can give me themes. I don't do this very often because for the most part, the data I'm using is too confidential to risk it in an AI. Mm. But when I've got sources where it's properly consented, properly permissioned, and I could do it, I have experimented with sticking it in AI and seeing what AI says and doing it myself properly and seeing what I say. It misses nuance. It absolutely misses, and it misses intuitive connections, and it makes the wrong leaps. It doesn't pick up sarcasm at all. And I think if I was going to rely on that, you'd end up with very, very bland results that will read like a computer did them, because it did.
Yeah.
But also in that data set, if the 80% of people are saying one thing, and then the 80% of people that ripples through the report, that's what AI is going to focus on naturally. In the other 20%, there's going to be 3 or 4 people who've come up with something incredibly important, often around equalities or access. And that one person who's saying, the reason this failed for me was this, Actually, they may be representing a much bigger percentage of people who didn't bother filling the survey in because they went, I couldn't use this. And they threw it away. Or a bunch of people who were so disengaged already that they couldn't be bothered responding, and this one person's responded for them. Then my brain goes, oh, that's interesting, and then can go away and ask those questions, which are the hard, uncomfortable questions. Like, this person told us this thing, no one else said that. And I'm going to throw it into a smaller pool of people, and they're going to go, oh, we all thought that, just none of us wanted to say. A computer will not do that. It just won't view that as important.
There's no decision being made because there's nobody in the process. That is the problem. Yeah. And one of the things that I've been experimenting with is writing stuff with AI and then not writing stuff with AI on social media and seeing how the social media platforms respond to it. What's really interesting to me is that actually, although the social media platforms tell us that they try and push value and that they try and push real human writing and connection and content and, people being involved with each other and engaging with each other, actually the opposite is true. Actually, what I have found is a lot of the algorithms will push content and push engagement, which is falsified because it's just been plugged into AI, actually better than proper human nuanced engagement, because probably the algorithm isn't great at actually understanding human nuance.
What humans like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think absolutely. I think it is going to be a problem. And the other thing is, you're absolutely right about time, to come back to that, is that, and I think AI is accelerating this, but it's been around for a while, is you get this idea that the self-same executives, these executives in tech firms, who will flat out tell you they come out with their best ideas if they've gone for a walk or meditated or done something that's not sitting at a desk, create software to log the number of times you press a button in an hour.
Correct.
And monitor their employees on that. Absolutely punishing thinking properly. Absolutely punishing if you're a person who thinks better with a pen in their hand.
Yep.
The same tech guys pushing these poisons at us keep their kids right off the computer. And they know it's wrong. They know that they're rushing decision making. They know that thought relies on time and actually thinking it. And they'll fire someone for not getting back to a Slack meeting in 10 minutes. And I don't know what's going on in there. I don't know who's benefiting from that one. It feels sinister and sticky. It is sinister and sticky, but there's also a bit of my brain going, what the actual?
Yeah. Do you think a lot of, this is a dangerous one, but probably a good one to close on today. Do you think a lot of KPIs are kind of out of whack with how work should work these days?
Absolutely, completely. Again, in the kind of goody spheres that, that I love working in, we talk about the difference between output, outcome, and impact. KPIs are almost always output.
Correct.
Yeah, so I will measure this employee on the number of hours they sit at this computer, not what they were doing. I will measure this work on the number of things it creates, the number of courses it generates, whatever it is. Yeah. And you count things. If you're lucky, you might get to outcome. If you're really lucky, you might get to someone being measured on, and the boss quite liked the report, tick. Nobody takes the time. This is us back to time again. Nobody takes the time to say, and 6 months later, did anyone remember a damn thing? I hear this all the time about, conversations like, do you remember that conversation we had? And you and I, usually I do. Do you remember that post you saw? You get this, engagement is driven on how, make it easy to read, but there's no friction. It slides off the surface of your brain. Do you remember it 10 minutes afterwards? And the best posts on LinkedIn, the best meetings you go to, the best courses you go to, sometimes they're sticky, they're uncomfortable. You remember them. We don't measure that at all.
Absolutely. I always come back to it. Look, there's one teacher in middle school when I was 11 who shall remain one of the heroes of my life forever and a day, right? Because the way he taught history brought history alive. He would grab people, he would get them to step up and stand on a table, and we do trial by ordeal with them.
Yeah.
And
you remember it?
Yes, it was so passionate. Do you know what I mean? I remember we went on a school trip to St Albans, Verulamium, where they've got like a Roman fort there, and he split the group into two, and then one would be at the top of the fort and one would be at the bottom. We had to battle each other, but we had to, you know, tell him why we would be doing certain things, and it was brilliant. It brought history to life, right? Yeah. It's people that actually are living stuff, not just processing stuff, right?
Yeah.
As soon as we get into process mode and it's like, oh, we've done that. And it's the same with things like training. If training just becomes like, have you done it yet? Have you ticked all of those boxes? Yes, good. Oh, brilliant. You know, you go back and ask that person, what did you learn? I don't know. I just ticked all the boxes. Yeah. You know,
I have, and on important topics that I have done literally equalities and diversity training. I'm not going to dignify it with believing that counts, which was literally tick boxes. And it was sort of, you know, Bob calls Susan and insert insult here. Do you A, ignore him? B, what are we learning? The output, we could say everyone went on the training. It's mandatory, everyone's done it. The outcome, people might feel a little bit smug about themselves at the end. The impact?
Yeah, no, exactly. I've got a client who is blind, and, you know, if he does awareness training with people, he'll blindfold them. He'll make them shoot at a goal, right? Because he used to be captain of the blind England football team. He will get them to walk up a set of stairs blindfolded, right? Yeah. That's how you understand what it's like to be blind.
Absolutely.
You know, not ticking a box going, oh, if you were in a room and it was dark and, you know, that doesn't put you in the frame. It doesn't give you that emotional connection to it at all. We have to get back to conversations. We have to get back to giving people time. I think these are the things that are really fundamental. And as you say, and I think it's absolutely right, if we're not in our businesses, if we're not changing the culture to understand that, to give a human the right time and the right space to actually do the work properly, when it's needed, we are making a grave mistake. Yes, use AI to, if somebody's copying thousands of bits of data from one spreadsheet to another, that's a waste of time.
Oh yeah, it does brilliant work on things like finding irregularities in blood tests and things like that. It's fantastic at that.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of the forensic police stuff lately, and, you know, where they've introduced AI into looking through security camera and, you know, Ring doorbell footage and like identifying people and like cutting that down into, you know, what would take hours for someone to go through that footage into minutes. That's brilliant. That's great.
It has use cases. That use case can't be being a human being.
Yeah, that use case can't be, this is stuff where we need you to think about it because it's been produced from humans in the first place, right? Because as you said, where humans are involved in it, it will be messy, it will be nuanced, it won't be obvious, it won't follow logic, and you won't understand it. You'll miss some of that.
And you're going to have to go for a walk and think about it, which means you won't be doing this on a button while you're doing it.
Absolutely. Just to kind of finish, I feel like one of the dangers is the way that's being sold. I looked at 3 or 4 adverts selling AI on, I think it was on Instagram, and the way it was being pushed was, the one that really stood out to me was 2 girls come to an office, they sit down and they go, what are we doing today? Oh, well, because we've got AI now, basically we can spend the whole day choosing what hot drinks we do and painting our nails. Right? That might sound great, but actually the reality is that really what you want? Because the reality is, if work and life have become more integrated, don't you want to get satisfaction out of the work that you do? You have to want that. And if you want that, you have to be involved in it, right? Otherwise, just don't work. You know?
Oh, I mean, yeah, there are proposals around that as well, but it's yeah, I think it's really, we have lost the idea, I think, to an extent, that work can be good. I think we've lost that it can be meaningful. And I think one of the things that will build that meaning and that it can be good, even in my relatively, like the jobs you dismiss as dead end jobs, have been the human beings and those stories.
Absolutely. Listen, Sarah, that's been a great chat today.
Thank you. It's been really good. Thank you for inviting me on.
I hope if you've been watching or listening to this over the last 50 minutes or so, that it's encouraged you to join in the conversation. If you'd like to get talking to either Sarah or me or both of us, we'd love to invite you into a Better Way of Life community in order to come and join in some of the conversations that we're having. Let's hope that some of you take a little bit more time to have more conversations during the next week or so, and actually start by thinking, what are they thinking about, rather than what am I thinking about? You'll probably find that your conversations will get deeper much quicker if you start off from that foot. Until next time, from Sarah and myself, thanks for listening. Bye for now.